Hello, welcome to Flory Models. I'm Flory. Quick talk about the wash. A couple of myths going round about it and everything else like that. Probably true many years ago, but certainly not now. The wash itself, now we have the box full. You can buy it as a box set. We have 8 colours in the range. When it arrives to you, it will come like this. So down in here, as you can see, we've actually got the black. Very strong black. It's a lovely black. We'll show you a little bit more about that in a moment. We've got the dark dirt, which is the jack of all trades colour. Works great over absolutely anything. It's like an oily black colour, but it's not as strong, so it's great for using on aircraft as panel line washes, general washing over absolutely everything. We've got the light, okay, formerly known as light dirt. It's now pure white, okay. Before we couldn't ever guarantee the clay being pure white. It is pure white now, but we've kept the name light. Brown, it's already brown, it's quite a nice brown, great for anything sort of muddy, everything else like that. We've got your sand colour, as you'll see in a moment, we'll be using that. Very much sand, great for doing dusting effects and everything else. Rust, as you can imagine, is a nice rusty colour. We've got grey, formerly known as concrete. It's concrete grey, so now we just call it grey. It literally is like concrete. When it dries, it's great. So if you're using it for dioramas, for brickwork, things like that, if you're using it with white, works absolutely fine, no problem at all. And we have grime, which we've spoken about a lot recently. Another jack of all trades colour. It's great. It just looks like road dirt, stuff on trains, armour, anything else like that. Absolutely fantastic. It's also great for a diorama type colour because it is like a dirty, it's like a soil dirt instead of, whereas the dark dirt is an oily type dirt, this is more like a soil dirt and grime and things that you might find. So anyway, you can buy them as a box set available on the site, or you can buy them as individuals. Now, individual colours, these are my ones that I've got down here. The first thing you'll notice is you can hear a rattle. To be honest, it's just a stainless steel nut. I have a box full of them just down in here, and I use usually something really like this, sort of M51, okay, really handy. What it happens, it stops it from settling, if you like, down in the bottom, because sometimes you might find you get a thicker bit down the bottom. What you do, give it a wash, bit of soapy water, dry it off, pop it in, okay, and then you'll get the, and what it does is just break it up. Now, most of you know our wash contains no flammables, there's no toxins, no nasties, no nothing. It is literally water displacement gel, which is a natural product as well, which helps break the capillary action, and clay. Now, a lot of people think this is just a sludge wash, okay? It's a lot more than just a sludge wash. It technically, a sludge wash is where you're using things like pastels and things like that to make a wash, which is quite thick and everything. So if we use the black, because we're going to be using that in a moment, I haven't got one in here. Really important, a lot of people, they get grittiness and clumping and things like that. We found literally it's where you get setting solutions from decals, oils, things like that, get into the wash. It affects the actual, the way that the pigment works with the clay, and it causes it to clump. What I do recommend now is you just get yourself some clean bottles, or use a little dish or something else like that. Then what you do, you decant just a little bit, or how much you think you're going to need, into a jar, okay, screw the lid on just like that, clean up the bottle, okay, and then you'll end up with something in here. Now, if I give it a bit of a swill, do the wine thing, you can probably see, or I'm hoping you can see, it's not like a sludge wash, okay, this is very, it's sort of oily, in its nature. There's no grittiness, there's no texture or anything else. This is what we call our version 3 of the wash. All the washes are like this now. It is extremely smooth, okay? As you can see, there's no particles, there's no grittiness or anything else. Literally, we've just made it better and better and better going right the way through. So, a couple of things before you start using the wash. First of all, with your model, make sure the surface is completely dry. 99.9% of the time when people have it and it's stuck on the model, okay, it is where the surface isn't completely dry. Don't forget, you're putting a fluid over the top of your paintwork. It softens your paintwork, and with our weathering technique that we use, as in rubbing it around and brushing it around and grinding it in, it gets stuck, okay? The surface isn't completely dry and it gets welded onto it. The other 0% is where it's just getting caught in the surface texture of the paint, which is something we'll cover a little bit later on during these videos. But certainly a way to sort of rule of thumb with this, This will come off of any surface. It doesn't matter if it's completely flat, it doesn't matter if it's completely glossy, okay? As long as the surface is smooth, so you can actually get it off of the surface, because obviously if it's rough, like sandpaper, it gets caught in that texture and it physically can't get out. It can't be released by using a damp cloth or sponge or something else like that. If you put warm water through an airbrush, you can rinse it off and get it out that way, okay? But 99% of the time, any problems have always been tracked back to your surface not being dry. Now, depending on the type of paint you're using, it depends on the drying time. Obviously, variables all the way through this, how warm it is, the humidity, so forth and so on, okay? Rule of thumb, basically hold it in your hand for a few minutes, okay? If you can feel anything at all, tackiness or anything else like that, then it's not dry. Acrylic paints, I always say give them 24 hours to dry. Enamels, things like that, I say give them a week, okay? It needs to be completely off, all right? Once it is, the weathering solution that we have here will work perfectly over absolutely everything. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what this stuff will do, okay, and how easy it is to use. So if we just use this little piece of armor skirt here just for a real quick job, remember, put it into a separate dish, pour it in there, okay, just take a little bit at a time so you've got no waste, because what you don't want to do is pour this back in the bottle if you haven't used it, because you'll contaminate the original. Brushes, make sure they're totally clean. Make sure you haven't got any setting solutions on them or they've got thinners on them, brush cleaner, everything else. Rinse them under warm water, completely make sure they're clean and everything else like that, okay? Because sometimes what can happen is you take it, you put it on here, into there, then it goes back into your bottle which you've been using and can contaminate it, okay? So what we've got down here is a little piece of armor skirt, all right, and what we're going to do is just show you very, very quickly how easy this is to do and what sort of effects you can get with it. This is just the black, okay? All we're going to do is literally just going to run it along just like this, okay, and we're just going to put it down, okay, and then we're just going to drag it and take it down to the bottom, and the capillary action, as you see, will flow very nicely. Don't worry about these bubbles and things like this, but as you can see, it clings to the wheel nuts, and also you get drag marks coming down. Now, if you want to, you can add a little bit more to certain areas, just tap a little bit around. You'll find it will cling to all the nuts and everything else like that. If you've got bubbles on there, you can brush them out of the way, okay, and everything else. So you can just sort of do around the tops here. So we just, because obviously it's going to be armour at the top, okay, and you can find it goes down there just like that, so you want quite a bit down there. All right, and then that is literally it. How quick and easy is that? You let that dry totally, and here's one I did just literally about 5 minutes ago, okay, and when it's dry it goes very light and pastel-y, okay, and gives you a very nice sort of look to your armour. So you've got things like, you've got it collecting around obviously nuts, bolts, but also it's in all those recesses. Now this is where the fun comes in with this stuff. Because it's water based, you can just wipe it away with plain water, spit, to be honest is my way, okay, cotton buds, paper towel, whatever way you want to do it, okay. So if you're using like a paper towel, all we do, break it up into quarters, just makes it last longer. Okay, and what you'll find is that depending what surface you've gone over will depend on the type of effect you get. If you were going over something like a very, very glossy, as you can see here, Hawk Jet, okay, with the panel lines, all that's going to happen is it's going to stay in the recesses of the panel lines. That is where it cannot physically be wiped out. If you were doing something on here where we've got a satin coat right the way over it, okay, you should end up with a situation where 90% of it comes off, but you sort of leave 10% behind. Now that 10% you leave behind is what gives you great weathering. So you might think that looks absolutely fantastic. I'm quite happy with the way that looks. I'm going to leave it just like that. Or you might say to yourself, right, I want to, you know, take a little bit off. It's a little bit too much, whichever way you want to do it. So all you do, I wet the cloth, okay, and then all you do is start to give it a little bit of a brush down, something like this, so you can get sort of streaking effects in your armour, okay, but because you've got the raised bits around the nuts themselves, it gives you this sort of scuffing going down, so you can make fantastic little effects. So this gives you that sort of scraped down type of look, perhaps where water's tracking down, dirt and mud and everything else like that. So you're not wetting it totally, you've just got a little bit on here, and as you can see on the cloth it's coming off just a little bit, and that's all we want. We don't want to take it all off, because if we wet this too much it will take it all away. Okay, so we just brush down. Okay, and that is the type of effect we get with it. So you've got this very, very nice sort of scuffed down look, just like that. And how quick and easy is that? No problems at all with it. Now, if you're happy with that, simple. Coat, flat, satin, whatever coat you want to use right the way over this to seal it down. This just makes it handleable, so if you have got wet, greasy fingers, you're not going to take it off, because obviously this is clay based. What will happen is, if you don't, you know, you're going to have fingerprints in it, you're going to wipe it away and stuff like that. This basically just stops it in, but you don't have to. You can leave this just like that and just think, okay, that's brilliant. You can do other little effects with this now. You can add, obviously, other colours to our range. You can mix the colours together exactly how you like them, anything else like that. Or you can think, I'm just going to overcoat, and you can go around it. So perhaps you want to add a little bit of grime to it on the lower halves or anything else like that. But really, that is it. It is that quick, that simple. And don't forget, with all our washes, if you don't like it, all you do, wet the cloth quite heavily, go along, and you can just wipe it all away and start afresh, because it is totally safe. Now this, it doesn't matter if you do it 20 minutes after you finished it, 2 years later, it will just wipe away, because all you're doing is rehydrating the clay and it wipes off. It is just as simple as that. It can also be put through an airbrush, so you can put it through right the way up to a 0.15 airbrush needle. It's totally happy to go through with it. You just clean up with normal water, clean water, or an airbrush cleaner, acrylic one, no problem at all, and away you go. It is simple as that. Okay, so now we're going to totally weather the entire thing. So we're going to break it up into sections. So what we're going to do, we're going to work with quite heavy washes to start with, to sort of grime us down, give us a nice heavy grime. Then we're going to come in with a couple of the little effects just to sort of change it a little bit. Some of the different coloured, like using the grime wash, the black wash, the dark dirt. And then what we'll do is we'll then put it all together. Okay, so then we'll add all the little bits and pieces onto it before we give it a final dust over with a sand wash to give it that sort of real dusty desert look to it all. So when you're doing something like armour, the easiest way to lay down a nice even coat to it is to actually spray it on. Now you can put it through your airbrush, obviously it'll go through anything you like, or you can buy something like a little pump bottle and pump it on if you wanted to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you putting it through an airbrush. Now it does get quite messy doing it this way, purely because of obviously it getting blown all over the place. So what we're going to do, we just put down a bit of kitchen towel just to catch the drips as it all comes off. If you're doing smaller items or more detailed things, obviously you use a brush to it. What I'm going to do for the moment is just give this the black wash right the way over it. The reason for doing that is to really sort of give it a grime it down. It's quite bleached at the moment. We want to change some of the transitions in there with the colours to make it sort of all break up and give it a worn look to it all. So what we've got down here, we got this is just the wash we had a moment ago, so we'll just tip that in there. So all this is shooting probably around about 25 psi, quite a high air pressure. It doesn't matter really what you spray it at, because you're just chucking it on, okay? And it's got the 0.15 needle in this, so obviously it's quite a small little needle. But what it will do, it will allow it to go on very, very evenly. So what we do, we're just going to start down here in the lower hull areas, things like that, and we're just trying to put on a nice even coat just to start with, because just like real road dust and everything else, you'll find that once it's got a coat of this on and it's dry, the next one comes along and will cling to it very, very easily. But there we go, that's the type of effect we're getting very quickly. So what we're going to do is just high air pressure, blow it down so it makes it all run off into the right areas, i.e. it'll cling to nuts and bolts and everything else. So what we're going to do, just do the front half, okay, just down here, just do the underside, okay, just to start with. Okay, and then what we're going to do immediately is flip it over onto its side, so naturally all the weathering and all of this wash will sink south. Okay, that will give you those nice drag marks and it'll be realistic. Don't leave it on its roof, otherwise everything's going to pull the wrong way. Okay, So once you've got it down like that, what you can start then is literally just going lightly everywhere over the entire thing. Just try and keep it quite even, but really with this there is no right and wrong to it all. It's basically just like painting, because if you was to carry on with this and literally just keep spraying, you would turn it black, because the more coats this have, the more black it goes. So what you might want to do now is certainly perhaps around the back area, things like that. It's a little bit more heavy, so you're just going to get a little bit more wash down there. But it's just the first coat, don't forget. And then what we're going to do, just for a little bit, we're just going to come across these side areas a little bit more heavy, a little bit more down these fronts, just so we get a situation where it starts to run, because we want it to run like natural dirt would. Now this will take around about 20 minutes to dry, so it's not going to sort of, you know, be too long hanging around with it. So we'll just pop him over here a moment, okay, and we're just going to do the hull, the upper turret, sorry. So what we're going to do, just start on the lower sections first. With a lot of this we're going to get rid of, okay, so it's only a sort of an effect. But because we're going to go around and rub this quite heavily to get rid of it all and to tidy it all up, obviously we don't want anything on here, because if you've got various items like small bits of photo etch and stuff like that, you could risk pulling them all off. But immediately, as you can probably see, it does give you a very nice sort of worn, weathered look. And the great thing about using an airbrush doing this is that it keeps it very smooth, very even, and also very, very random. If you're doing it with a brush, the only trouble is, like with the side skirts, you get bubbles, okay? And those air bubbles, when they pop, although they give you a nice variation in tones and different sort of randomizations, it does look a little bit fake the smaller you get. Big things, doesn't really matter, you get away with it. Small things, like little details perhaps up here on the upper turret, we want it to be in a situation, if we move that out of the way, where you can do it, and as you can see, it's clinging to all the low points and the depressions, but also it's clinging to all those parts. But because we haven't got that bubbling, it is very, very even. Now, don't worry about this being a little bit dark. Two reasons. That's why in the previous video when we were painting this, we made it a little bit lighter. That's to compensate, because I'm going to heavily give this a heavy wash, okay? But as you may be able to see already on this top turret around the back here, it's drying off, and as it dries lighter, okay? So never worry too much about it, but hopefully, as you can see already, we've got very nice grime effects and everything else just running down here in the gear and underneath and absolutely everything else like that. And that is the point to this stuff. It's very random and it's very, very natural. So what we're going to do now is let that totally dry down. Then we can come along, we're going to give it a little bit of a rub everywhere. This will then take it off of all the high areas and it will bring us back to being nice and light and everything else like that. Then we're going to come along with some more different colours to work in different areas. So what we're going to do, we're going to start next with the dark dirt, and we're just going to do the lower areas to all of this to give it that sort of more grimed up in those lower parts. The top areas, a bit more sandy, a bit more dusty, they won't have it. And then obviously we'll work our way through with some grime then, just around areas where it would get natural footfall and wear and tear and everything else. Then we can add all the little parts to it, okay, so that's all the small photo etch, the detail parts, everything else, before it has a sand coat put right the way over it, and it'll just be airbrushed on to give us a nice dusty look to it all. And then we can go along with cotton buds at any point to clean up small parts as we go through. So you might want to do all the wheels at the same time. And everything else like that. You can even do the tracks, of course, if you want to keep it all together. Personally, what I'm going to do is we'll dry brush the tracks to sort of bring them up separately, fit them, and they'll just get the dust and a little bit of grime work right the way over them, just to blend it all in and keep it all very natural. Okay, so there we go. Literally, it's only been about 10 minutes, but it's quite warm in here. And we are basically dry. Okay, a couple of little wet spots, they're the ones you want to worry about. Usually wet spots tend to be on the bottom, they tend to cling onto various areas and things like that. But hopefully, as you can see, we've got a very, very nice weathered look to it. And you know, some of the things you think maybe a little bit of a mistake you want to change, stuff like that, they can be some of the best areas. So for instance, this area down here, where it's not quite all the way down, I know we've got the skirt to go on there, but hopefully, as you can see, it gives it a nice heavy duty weathered look. We've got this area just down the front here, it's a little bit more dirty there, stuff like that. So it's those things. If you want to leave this and just walk away from it, by all means you can do it just now. If you want to, you know, add to further weathering and leave it really heavy weathered, you can do that. Add more coats, change colours, things like that. The main turret itself, especially nice, is really where it comes into its own. You've got this detailing underneath here, which is all of these, you know, very nice nuts and bolts. This entire lower section is giving us a fantastic weathered look to it all. Okay, personally for me it's a little bit strong. Now you've got various options to remove this. Okay, first option, you can just put warm water through your airbrush and use it like a pressure washer effect and just rinse it all off. Okay, you can do some great weathering effects like it. It's very even. Okay, so when you're spraying it down, it takes off quite an even area. You can then come along with obviously just a cloth and do it just like this. So what you might want to do is start off with, don't even wet it, just try it dry and see what happens when you rub it over, because what will happen is you will get it caught in the texture, and obviously it will take off the high points, so such as corners, nuts, areas like that. So you can probably see it just running down here. We've got the situation where it's all coming off very nicely. It's leaving it down in there, obviously it's coming up on the cloth. But what you might want to do is just add a little bit of moisture to it. The moisture just gets things going and just starts to push it all around a bit. But you can see, because we've got this texture on the model, it's getting caught inside that texture and giving us very nice effects. And obviously you can wet it a lot more and take it all off and just start again. It's personal exactly how you want to do it. Personally, you can do other little techniques, such as if you get a just grab a sheet of kitchen roll. You can wet a brush, or you can just literally, this is just plain tap water in this. Okay, just give it a brush, and you can sort of do dry brushing with this. Okay, so you sort of go on and you'll make streaking effects, and you can do a myriad of different effects doing it this way, which is great because you can use it almost, it's like dry brushing in reverse. Okay, because you can literally just take some off, you can put some on. Exactly what you want to do. You say if you just keep it slightly moist, it's not even wet, you know, it will just take off the high points, as you can probably see here. And you can scuff at it, you can chip at it, you can pull at it, any particular way you want to do it. And again, if you don't like it, just simply wet it heavily, wipe it away, and you just start again. It's literally as simple as that. There's no risk to this. As long as the base coat is dry, you have no problem at all. So what I'm going to show you now is this little technique for doing rinsing back, as we call it. Okay, so this is just plain water in here. Okay, so what we do, it makes a bit of a mess this. I'm just gonna, okay, as I said, it's plain water. So actually what you do, you just come along simply like this, okay, and just rinse it down. And see, as soon as you touch it, it turns back to water. So what you can now do is just blow off some of it, just like so. So if you find you've got photo etch and you're a little bit worried about areas, you can literally come in and remove it, but also you can make quite interesting patterns with it because you can maneuver it around a little bit. Okay, just to rinse back. Perhaps if you're finding it a little bit too heavy, okay, and just by blowing it around you can do various things, or you can use it like a pressure washer and clean up what you don't want, and then obviously paper towel cleans it up and you just start again. It is simple as that. It is that risk-free, but it's that thing. The more you play with it, the more you do different effects, the more you'll find out just how good this stuff is and how well it really works. So it's up to you. You can just carry on now and just literally obliterate it in heavy weathering, do very light weathering, or exactly how you like. So what we're going to do now is put this back how we had it. So what you can actually do is add to this again. So we just get off this water. Okay, we'll let that dry just a second over there. But this is the great thing with this. You can add, you can take away, exactly how you feel. Just get rid of that water. Okay, we'll just go back in with our black. So all we do, we're just going to decant, keeping the original nice and fresh. This. Okay, so what we're going to do, pour back in. Alright, check our flow, and we're just going to go in. I'm going to put it all back in again. So you can overcoat and build up just as much as you like. Let's just tidy up that area down there, this area down the back. Probably need 2 coats just to get rid of what you've actually done. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit more down the front, a little bit more on these areas underneath now because it's got a bit more on. So we'll just let that dry. A bit more. Fill this up because we're going to give it quite a heavy go. Okay, so again, just placing everything we washed away. The turret. Barrel even. And the one area I missed last time was around the back. Okay. Okay, and there we go. We're back to where we were before. Touch more down there, apart from we've managed to do the gun this time. Perhaps a little bit more underneath. And there we go. So that's one. We'll just leave that there to dry. In with this other one. Also, you can dry down. Don't use a hairdryer with it or anything with heat, because otherwise you can soften the paint and then it gets cool. Okay, so literally just drying down with fresh air. Get it a little bit dry. What this enables us to do is for it to grab hold of itself. This back area. It's quite heavy on the top. Just round these sides. And there we go. We are good to go again.